Welcome back to BookWatch. We are continuing our discussion of The Hunger Games: Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins and its 2013 film adaptation directed by Francis Lawrence. In our last episode, we covered the first half of the story from Katniss and Peeta's victory tour through the districts, the growing signs of rebellion, and the shocking announcement of the 75th Hunger Games Quarter Quell, which would force previous victors back into the arena. Today, we are picking up at the just after the reaping, where Katniss and Peeta are selected once again and diving deep into the Quarter Quell itself, the alliances forms, the horror of the new arena, and the explosive finale that changes everything for Katniss and the future of Panem. I am Sarah-Daye.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Jordyn.
J Scotty, welcome back to another episode of BookWatch.
Thank you. I've made it this far. I haven't died yet. No cannon has sounded for J Scotty yet.
So this second part of the story, we are introduced to some other previous victors. I'm going to run through those characters and the cast that plays them, and then we can sort of just talk about those characters before diving into the second part of the plot. So we have the beautiful Finnick Odair, played by Sam Claflin, Mags, played by Lynn Cohen, Johanna Mason, played by Jenna Malone, Beatty, played by Jeffrey Wright, Wirus, played by Amanda Plummer, Brutus, played by Bruno Gunn, Enobaria, played by Meta Golding, Kashmir, played by Stephanie Schlund, Gloss, played by Alan Ritchin, and Chafe, played by E. Roger Mitchell. What were our thoughts on this cast?
Bruno Gunn, is that another James Gunn sibling right there?
Oh, there you go.
Or is that just Kirk playing another part from Gilmore
That's
Girls?
a good question.
I love Jeffrey Wright, so Beatty is one of my favorites. I think he did a great job with that role. Finnick felt like he matched the story a lot, and I think the rest of them felt pretty consistent with the book, but I don't have any other real major thoughts on those.
Yeah, I agree. As you're running down the list, I think, some of these characters and performers were given more opportunities to do things than other ones, but that's kind of in keeping with the book. But I think the casting is pretty spot on across the board. I think everyone is realized from page to screen pretty faithfully. And again, we were talking about what a faithful adaptation this is. Now that we're in the back half, I feel like outside of a few minor things, this is where it really is like so faithful to what we had in the book. But yeah, I'm gonna hone in on Finnick Odair, or Sam Claflin as Finnick Odair specifically. One of my favorite characters in the book, one of my favorite characters in the movie, and he's just casted perfectly. He really lays the charm on well, but there's always just like this undercurrent of like, hey, can I fully trust him? What are his motivations, and what is he trying to do here? I will say, just because I'm a stickler when it comes to accents and replicating accents and stuff, there are a couple of times, particularly when he's screaming and being very emotional. So like when he says people's names, like I noticed it when he said Joanna's name one time, and then Annie particularly, his accent slips just a little bit. But beyond that, it's spot on.
I'm also going to nitpick Finnick, whom I love. I love Finnick dearly, and I love Sam Claflin as Finnick. But I didn't really realize this until I just reread the book, but Finnick is supposed to be 24 years old.
Oh.
And that just makes everything about him, just like all of the things about the Hunger Games are even more heartbreaking when you consider the fact that you're talking about kids. Like, he's the youngest winner ever, and he was 14. And
14.
now he has to go 14 years old, and now he has to go back in, and he's still 24. Like, he's younger than I am, and I'm like the youngest person here. No shade. But so like that's literally the only thing about it that I'm like, that I just question a little bit. But like, when you've already kind of had to age up Katniss and Peeta a little bit, because just, J-Law and Josh Hutcherson have grown up, and you kind of also have to age up Finnick. So I totally understand it, but I wish all of them had been their proper ages, so that way we could really like grasp the horror of what the Hunger Games are and what they do, and then the horror of what Finnick has had to go through. It's alluded to and it's explored more in other books, but Finnick was, he's a sex slave. He was
Yeah.
sold in the capital for his body, and he was a victim of that. And so I think like they don't really touch on it that much in the movie or at all, really. And so I think like it should have been explored, especially with recent events and recent news happenings coming out. Like it is something that could have been really important to hear about and face the facts of 10 years ago when this movie came out, and to have a younger person playing that role could have been really, really significant. So if they were ever...
I will say that if I'm doing my math correctly, he was 27 when the movie came out. So he was probably 25, 24, 26 when they filmed.
Oh, really? Oh, I thought he was much older than that. My bad.
Again, if I'm doing my math correctly.
Just looking at the list here, I might call out Gloss there, a young Alan Richardson, our Reacher himself, being in that role of one of the careers. That's pretty. I didn't catch that watching it, but that's kind of fun.
I definitely did the Leo meme because I forgot he was in this thing. So yeah, I was like, I know him. What are you doing in this, Reacher? A lot more slender.
I think when I watched,
now that you mention it, I recognize him.
So.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the show, so I didn't catch that on my rewatch, but I do recognize his pictures.
I did that in the first Hunger Games with one of the careers. Yes. I was like, that's Huey from The Boys.
Yes. Oh yeah. Jack Quaid. Yep. Yeah, he was Marvel.
Yes. I was like, Huey, what are you doing here? So I had that same moment in the last movie. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, I take back what I said about Sam Claflin, that if he was actually 25, 26, he just looked like he was in his mid-30s. So my bad, brother. Sorry. I take it back.
Yeah, I think he's always looked a little older because he was just in Daisy Jones and the Six, and I think he looked a lot older than he is. Although that character is like an alcoholic and drug user, so maybe they tried to make him look older and more rugged. Yeah. But I first saw him in Pirates of the Caribbean. I think it's on Stranger Tides, and fell in love with him in that movie. And then I believe he was in.
Guy?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's right. Okay.
And then I think he was in something else I saw before Catching Fire. So I was very thrilled to have him cast as Finnick way back, 2013. So I guess I was 23. I think you guys know I'm not good with math and numbers. But anyway, little younger Sarah-Daye was so excited to see Sam Claflin as Finnick. Finnick was one of my favorite characters too. He's a great character. And I was really excited to see Sam play him. I think, of course, Jeffrey Wright, as we mentioned, always going to nail his roles. I also was a Jenna Malone fan, so it was excited to see her as Joanna. I thought she did such a good job as Joanna, playing, that very harsh type of character. So yeah, no complaints from me for this cast.
Yeah, and since we're just kind of running down, Jeffrey Wright as Beetee is inspired in the book. They really do a good job of like noting like he feels like a teacher kind of speaking down to the other tributes to make sure they can understand what he's going for. And I thought that was just captured perfectly. And Jeffrey Wright is like the perfect person to lend that kind of pedigree. But also Wiress, Amanda Plummer. I think Amanda Plummer is great as Wiress. But if I'm not mistaken, Amanda Plummer, her big claim to fame is from the Saw movies. I think she plays an acolyte. I won't give things away if you haven't watched those movies, but she plays a pivotal role in those films. So to see her kind of transition from more of these like indie horror films, they got more and more popular as they went on, but to make the transition to like blockbusters, I don't know that she's done as much with her career since, but it's nice to see that name there. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm just kind of noticing Meta Golding as Enobaria. Does she also play a member of the prep team? Is she she's Vinia as well, so we've got an actor doubling up on roles here, maybe? A dual performance?
I don't think so. Let me scroll back up.
No? Okay.
Are you talking about like Vedya in the... Oh, I see what you mean. I must have gotten that Wrong. Let me see if I can correct that. So in the last
I wasn't trying to
episode, I
call you
did
out.
say
I thought it was just an interesting.
no. I'm glad you did because I would like to. Venya in Catching Fire movie. I would like to, acknowledge the actor that did play her.
Sure. Okay, so Meta Golding for sure plays Inobaria. I'm not sure
Inobaria.
about.
That's correct. Yeah.
It seems like Venya is not in the movie. It really just focuses on Flavius and Octavia. I think there is another
Okay.
prep team member that we see, but they might not have been, they might have been uncredited.
Okay.
Good catch.
Yeah, well, I hope I didn't derail things too much, but Chaff is interesting too because I don't think E. Roger Mitchell is given a ton to do, but in his short sequence there where he kisses at Katniss and then Haymitch is able to give you a little bit of an inclination of what their history and relationship is. I may be wrong about this, but when I was reading the book, I don't think we're ever given a definitive, excuse me, a definitive answer on the fate of Chaff. Like towards the end, there are a lot of cannons going off, and Katniss doesn't know who those are representative of. But if I'm not mistaken, in the film, during one of the night sequences where you get the faces displayed in the sky, I think you see the guy that's playing Chaff is confirmed to have died.
Yeah, I think so. I remember in the book, she's like doing the math. She's like, okay, there's 8 of us left, and one cannon. Like she's doing the math in her head, and she's like, I don't know what happened to Chaff, Inabaria, and somebody else. I don't know where they're at. So yeah, he is left undetermined, and then I think later, after she's pulled out and she's on the plane with Haymitch and Plutarch, they confirm the whereabouts of some people, but I don't think Chaff is one of them. So I think he's presumed dead in the arena explosion, to my knowledge.
Yeah, that tracks.
Any other thoughts on the cast before we move into our plot?
I think we've covered them.
Well, just a little love to Lynn Cohen. Mags is a non-verbal character, but the facial acting and the physical acting that she does is really well done.
Yeah, agreed. She really makes you fall in love with her, and we only get her for a short portion of the film, unlike we get her a little bit more in the book. But yeah, she did a great job.
Yeah, and even Haymitch's line where he's, she's a good lady, like, I'm not happy that she's here, because even now with victors, like you talk about like the careers, like they're still kind of like the bad guys or like the others out of the victors. But for Haymitch to like speak fondly of Mags and say, she's a nice lady, and I don't want to see anything too terrible happen to her, goes a long way towards making Katniss affectionate towards her as well.
Yep.
And it looks like that character is in Sunrise on the Reaping as well.
Oh, great.
So we left off the last episode with our reaping and abruptly taking Peeta and Katniss away without being able to say goodbye. So we head to the Capitol. We have the chariot, entry. She ignites the outfits on fire when she makes eye contact with Snow. We meet Finnick. We meet is Chaff the one that gives her the kiss?
That's right.
Joanna stripping down. Let's talk about like all these introductions before we get into like the later half of the ceremonies, before we go into the arena and the interviews and the wedding dress and all that. What did we think about meeting all these characters?
Very, very well done.
Yeah.
And again, this is where the book is the movie is basically doing exactly what happened in the book. Like I think about Finnick, popping the sugar cube in his mouth, like all of that is straight from page to screen. And
that's such a simple little thing to include, but it was so great to see because it's just a little detail. Like he could have been munching on anything, nuts, chocolates, anything, but the fact that they
Sure.
included the sugar cubes was really fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, and Joanna, her scene in the elevator. Yeah, I was glad that they included that because it is such a memorable scene. And to in the book, it's very much isolated to Katniss's kind of reception in that moment. But in the film, you get to see Peeta's reaction as well as Haymitch's, and I just found that to be really funny and some much needed like comedic relief in that moment.
Yeah, Jen Law's facial expressions in that scene are top tier.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think the only thing they didn't include was when Haymitch introduces Chaff and his partner from District 11 to Katniss and Peeta. Katniss asks the female tribute about Rue's family and Thrush's family after the
Oh,
mini
that's a good call.
uprising that we got to see.
And they get a tiny update
So
there,
yeah, and so she just knows that their families are alive, and that's all the information that they're able to pass because again they live in a surveillance state and everything is on camera and can be heard. But I thought that could have been a nice scene because we don't really hear that much about Rue or about the aftermath of the victory tour through the rest of the film. So that could have been a nice like little tie-in if they had included it, but it's so small that it makes sense why they didn't.
Yeah, like another way to even show it or something like, they pass some sort of note saying, "Hey, everybody's okay still." Would have been kind of a interesting to do maybe during training or something. But yeah, I think it's okay to have omitted it. We don't need that at this point in the story. It doesn't add enough to make it to sway it one way or the other.
The next portion of their time in the Capitol is the training sequences. They're getting to know these people more. Katniss is like, how are we going to kill these people? They're trying to pick their allies. And of course, she wants mags and then nuts and bolts. And they also have their final showcase where Peeta ends up painting Rue with when she has died and Katniss has done the flowers around her, and then Katniss hangs a body and writes Seneca Crane. And in the book, they don't realize that they have done that. But in the movie, she does see the painting of Rue, and that's what kind of sets her anger ablaze and makes her do that hanging. What did you think of that small change?
I thought it made a lot of sense. Yeah, in the book, they go out of their way to say like, "Hey, the Capitol has gone to lengths to cover this up," and the fact that she had to wait like 40 minutes and can smell like the cleaning products when she gets there, she knows something went down, but she doesn't know what. So it's kind of a little mini mystery you have at that point in the book. But again, when you've got limited screen time, you just show it right then and there and kind of get all the sentiment across. So yeah, it made sense to me in the moment, and it was they had the sequence in District 11 where they flash, Rue up on the screen. So it's a good reminder for people. So when you do see that painting, you know who the character is and it's effective. I particularly liked when she hung up the dummy of Seneca Crane because I don't think the book goes into as much detail about what exactly she did. Like she says she marked it up and wrote Seneca Crane on it, but in the movie, like she makes his like weird facial hair that he has and everything. It's just so recognizable. I thought that was I love seeing that brought to life.
And it really does. The Rue painting being right there for her to see adds to what she's already feeling in her emotions of, I want to do something to fight back. I don't like that they've put us all through this, so I want to use this as a time to make another statement, and she does. So I think that makes sense and flows pretty well.
Yeah. And going back to the training scenes, again, very nitpicky. I understand why they didn't include it, but there's the moment where Peeta organizes all the victors and they put all the tables together and they share a meal together, all 24 of them. And again, another moment of districts having unity with each other in a positive way instead of being at each other's throats. And even the careers are in that, like districts 1 and 2 are included in that. So, and it goes towards, you know, her line in the movie where she's like, how are we supposed to kill these people? Like, even the careers don't want to be here. They don't support this. Like, everybody is. And so you kind of could have started that thread of like all of them being upset that they're back instead of waiting until the interviews with Caesar later. So that's, again, very nitpicky, but I would have liked to see that scene in the film.
Mm.
Mhm.
So speaking of the interviews, we wrap up our pre-games celebrations with the interviews. Peeta and Katniss have gotten engaged, and they were going to have this massive wedding, but then they got reaped, so now they can't have a wedding. But President Snow makes her wear the wedding dress to those final interviews. And of course, Cinna has added a little touch to it, and what she doesn't realize until she does spin, and the wedding dress burns up in flames, and we get to see the Mockingjay dress. And then, of course, in Peeta's interview, he drops another bomb like he did the previous year. But instead of saying he's in love with his district partner, he lies about Katniss being pregnant and them having gotten married, doing the bread ceremony in the book. The toast, actually, because I love that little how a toast turned into an actual toasting of the bread.
Right.
And then we kind of end this moment with all the tributes standing on the stage and holding hands. And it's one moment of unity before they get into the games and bloodbath.
Mm-hmm. I wish the line, or I don't remember if the line from Cinna was included in the film, but there's a line in the book where he talks about like, I channel my feelings into my art, into my fashion, so that way nobody else gets hurt by it but me. And like him turning her into the Mockingjay on a big stage like that is an act of rebellion. Again, like
Oh yeah.
all these little things that, you know, if you're just a citizen in the capital, you're like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. It's like her pin. It's whatever. But if you know, you know. And Cinna knows what he's doing. He knows there's going to be consequences, and he still is, you know, supporting the rebellion in his way and supporting Katniss in his way. And so, like, to give him that line where he knows what he's doing and he knows that he will be punished for it, you know, gives him that extra layer of courage that I think, you know, could have been really valuable for him since he's such a small character. Like, any extra line or extra moment with him, you know, is going to be that much more powerful.
Yeah, the special relationship that they share is really well covered in the book just through um, Katniss's inner thoughts and just the opinion that she holds of Cinna. So, yeah, this is another instance where, again, with limited screen time, Lenny Kravitz was just the perfect person to convey all of the nuance that we're talking about. And yeah, he doesn't get as many lines or opportunities to convey those things in the movie, but they really work. And when they do, like you know the sacrifice that he's made, the way the camera pans to him, he takes the bow. He is a capital darling as well. Like his fashion teams talks about how, you know, everyone's wearing Cinna these days. And so it is such an effective blow against the capital. And yeah, just that move coupled with the reaction to when, you know, Peeta has the bombshell about the baby, like people start, you know, screaming to cancel the games and stuff like that. You really do get the understanding that this sentiment of unrest and rebellion is finally making its way to the capital.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I like in the montage of the interviews too, they do show the other tributes like laying the groundwork, and like it in the book it's described as like getting the crowd riled up. Like now all of a sudden the crowd is questioning what they've been told by the Capitol, and like, you know, they, like we said before, like they do have an attachment to these people that they've been watching and, you know, living alongside with for many years in some cases. So to include the, you know, Cashmere and Gloss and these other and Joanna, you know, getting to make their stand. And Joanna's interview is a little bit different, but even better in the movie, I think, than the book, where she
Yeah,
goes
agreed.
off like it. including those things, and then having it all end with Peeta's big bombshell, and then them all united holding hands like, we don't want this, we don't support this, we all agree, and then even the crowd supporting them and not agreeing with it and trying to call off the games. Like, that was all of the way that everything was structured there was really, really well done.
Totally agree.
Jordyn, you mentioned Sita and making such a statement with this dress and how he knows there's going to be consequences. And we do see those consequences a few scenes later. They are saying goodbye, and she is going into the tube to be raised into the arena. But there's a pause. She's not going up. They are both confused. And then, of course, peacekeepers come in and start beating Cinna up right in front of her. And this is to cause her a lot of emotion and confusion and stress right before she's thrown into the arena. But she does, calm herself down. She makes herself focus on what is around her. But before we get into the arena, let's talk about that moment where they come in and we see the end of Cinna.
It was a lot. This is a person you've grown, even the audience, we've grown to love watching it. Even just these few scenes, he's helped build her into this character. So to go from that and have him, last moment of "I believe in you, I still am rooting for you," and then all of a sudden she's just got to watch him be brutally murdered in front of her, or at least, I think all the way to murder. It was a lot for everybody, I think, including her. So. Yeah. I liked the way they did it, but I was like, oh, I don't want to be watching this. not Cinna.
Not Cinna. Not Lenny.
Yeah, I think one of the last things he gets to say, it might be his last line of dialogue, but he says something to the effect of like, "I'm still betting on the girl on fire." So for her to know the stakes and see the direct consequences of what happens to people that bet on her, I mean, yeah, it's just the worst headspace to go into. And again, just another instance of basically, word for word what happens in the book you see brought to life on the screen. It's not easy to read. It's even harder to watch when it, like you were bringing up, Chris, just such a beloved character, to see him writhing in such pain, and the brutality that is being released on him it's not easy.
Yeah, but important.
I think this is one of the few times where the level of brutality that's in the book is portrayed on the screen. Because again, the Hunger Games has children in it, and so it's very disturbing as a viewer to watch children, especially like the first movie and the first Hunger Games that we see, to watch children like actively killing each other is very difficult. And so a lot of the killings happen off screen because we're following Katniss, and so to actually see the level of brutality that the peacekeepers and the Capitol are capable of is just a good reminder before we go into the Hunger Games that these are not a game. This is literally life and death, and it is that serious. And like, the rebellion is going to be a war, and it's not just silly haha fun time where we don't like this or that, but it's not that serious. Like, it is that serious.
So we're introduced to the new arena. She gets her bearings. She notices all the waters. The cannons go off. She swims. She immediately gets her bow and arrows and forms a quick alliance with Finnick and Mags. Peeta is struggling in the water. They go to save him. And then the four of them make their way to the beach. Before we get into the first few kind of wedges of the clock and the trials that are in those, what do we think of the set design of this arena and what happens in the beginning of the scene?
I mean, they pretty much nailed it. It's exactly what's described in the book is brought to life on the screen there. And really selling like the tropical environment and just the abrasive heat and the dehydration factor. Again, this is one of those things that in the book you're really spending time in Katniss's head, so you get to hear her thoughts about how the dehydration is affecting every part of her ability to function. So to just be able to represent that visually, I thought was very, very well done. And I'm sure we're going to get there, but one of the other things that happens pretty early on in this alliance is the sequence where Peeta hits the force field with the machete and gets blown back and gets knocked unconscious, and then you have Finnick bring him back with CPR. So between the first sequence where Finnick shows that he has Haymitch's bangle and says, good thing we're allies, don't trust. I think he says don't trust 1 and 2. I think is what he says. So yeah, just to have this coupled. I remember in the book, it was really, she's like, why is he going out of his way to save someone that he's going to eventually have to kill? And her whole thought process is just like, I should cut my ties I should cut and run while I can before it becomes more and more difficult to kill these people. So yeah, I this is where, I mean, it's a great adaptation through and through, but this is where I felt like it really, like, again, we've been talking about where the filmmakers wanted to spend their time and their money. I think this is where it starts to come across like very clearly. This is what they were excited to adapt.
Yeah.
There was a little banter between the two of them in the book that I would have liked to see. But it's not a deal breaker for me to have that those few lines cut. But I think throughout the book, their banter with one another is really fun, and I don't think we get enough of that in Catching Fire because it just makes their relationship mean more in the next book. But
Sure.
I do think that what we did get was fine. And there are some lines that came directly out of the book.
Oh, sure.
I thought the CPR scene was interesting in the book, at least, because she didn't realize that what he was doing. Even she had never seen CPR, and I think she makes a comment about how Prim would have been right at home here in the helping people side of the Hunger Games here, and whereas she's kind of useless to them in that moment. Even though she has her strength, she was doubting herself, and I thought that was an interesting way for that to go, where she's feeling inadequate on the one thing that she can't do well.
Yeah.
And I think they touched on that a little bit by having her pull her bow and aim it at him before she has a little bit of a confusion on her face. So I think they did a really good job of showing that she didn't quite know what was happening, and then she kind of caught on.
I want to go back to the cornucopia for a second, because Katniss can swim, and that's a huge advantage here, where a lot of these other districts are landlocked. And so the reason they have to save Peeta is because Peeta never learned how to swim, because he didn't have a parent taking him beyond the fence to the lake and learning how to swim.
So she's one of the few in her district that even knows.
Exactly. And then going back to the training scene in the book, after she has her super cool moment of killing all of the pretend people and the holograms, in the book it explains how all the other tributes go to Haymitch and I want her as my ally after they see that. She's a threat. She is a dangerous person in these games, and the only one who doesn't get that is her. She's like, who, I can't win, I just have to save Peeta. It's you could win, you won the last one. She is a killer. She has killed before. She has that self-preservation instinct, and especially the instinct to save Peeta. She is a fighter. She can swim. She has all this knowledge about the spile, where to get the water, all these things that her father trained her on, knowingly or unknowingly. She is a real threat in these games, and it just goes to show the power of the point of view, where all these other tributes recognize her for the threat that she is, and she doesn't. And again, like I said last episode, she's so single-minded focused on protecting Peeta that it never occurs to her that she could win again on her own merit, because she is that equipped. She's just I gotta save Peeta, whatever it takes.
Or even that there's something else going on that she's missing. She was so oblivious to that for the most part, because she was set on that goal.
And she doesn't even start to really question that at first with Finnick and the bangle. It's not until they get with Joanna and Wyrus and Beetee later, that's when she, in the book at least, that's when she really starts to question what the heck is going on here. Like, something is up. At first, she's just like, whatever. If Haymitch says to be good with Finnick, then I'll be good with Finnick for now. But like you said, J Scotty, like, she still is like, I should kill him in his sleep. I gotta get Peeta out of here. Like, he's a threat. He's dangerous. And it's not really until Finnick goes out of his way to save Peeta that she's like, okay, maybe I can trust him, because this is the Hunger Games. In a normal Hunger Games, if somebody dies, you let them die, because it's either that or you have to kill them later. So for him to go and actively save Peeta's life is huge for earning her trust. And so that with Haymitch is a game changer for her at that point.
But she never really loses sight that it is the Hunger Games, because she does say, when it comes down to it, I hope that he just dies and that I don't have to kill him, because she knows she won't be able to, because he saved Peeta.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Twice.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Drowning and from
electrocution. Now, I did want to mention that in the book, he doesn't leave the platform, right? He's still on the platform.
Yes.
And they have to go get him. Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
While we're highlighting some of Katniss's talents and advantages, like knowing how to swim, it is bringing to mind a few things. Like, on the subject of talents, the talents are not mentioned in the book or in the movie at all. I don't think that's a big loss. Like, Katniss doesn't even really have that much interest in her fake fashion hobby, so not a big loss there. I think you lose a little bit of something with Peeta and the paintings. That would have been nice to maybe have some foreshadowing to what he was going to do in the training sequence. But what it also brings to mind is when Katniss shows off her abilities to shoot and everybody wants her. The other revelation that I don't think we get in the movie, correct me if I'm wrong, I might have just missed it, but after they do their private displays, they get 12s. They get rated 12s for, even though they were open acts of rebellion, they still get rewarded with a 12, but it's not a reward because that just makes them a target. It's like, oh, the two people that got perfect scores, of course everybody's going to be gunning for them.
Right.
So
Correct.
The other
and
thing
that is
I was
something
kind
we
of
see in the first movie is the scores. They do have a whole sequence about the scores in the first movie.
Oh yeah.
And then one little, I know you have another point to make, but you mentioned getting the foreshadowing to his artistic ability. Yes, we don't have that in this film, but they do make a point to showcase that in the first film, because he paints himself as the mud. So it would have been nice to have a reminder before that, but I think we can all remember that from the first film at least.
Yeah, it's a fair point. It's a fair point. But while we're kind of talking about Peeta's artistic abilities, we're not quite there in our breakdown of the story here. But he does eventually provide a map that doesn't really get visited in the movie, but nor does the scrapbook that he's helping Katniss put together, like her family, the collection of her family's knowledge about roots and plants and stuff like that. So again, Katniss kind of has that identity crisis where I think we were talking about it previously in connection to Prim. Like, Katniss is not a healer, and there's a line of dialogue where Peeta says something to the extent like, you've got the healing blood in you, like that's in your genes, and she's like, no, I got my father's blood, I'm not a healer like that. So, and I think she has some similar thoughts about, like, I know the plants back in District 12 and I can identify those, but in the jungle I have no idea what could be a food source, what could be poisonous, what have you. So that kind of leads to her not wanting to eat these nuts that Mags is just going to town on, but she does get to use those as the way to throw them at the force field to reveal it, which in the book she has to make up this whole convoluted lie about when they reconstructed my ear, I've got supersonic hearing now, and you just don't really need that in the in the movie. So I wasn't super missing it, but just it is a notable difference.
Okay, so our first look at one of the trials is not the right word, but the right word is escaping me at the time. But the first one we get is the fog. And the group is, sleeping. Katniss is taking the first watch, and she notices this fog, and it turns out to be poison. She wakes everybody up, and they try to escape the fog. They're getting burned. There is a difference here between the book and the film, and that is she tries to carry Mags when Peeta goes down, because Finnick will carry Peeta, and then she just can't do it anymore. She asks if Finnick can carry both. He's like, there's no way. That's when Mags takes her own life and sacrifices herself. And then they end up escaping the fog and finding the pool of healing water.
Yeah, this was pretty gruesome. Like, this was a good showcasing of some like I think they used some practical effects when it came to like the boils that appeared on their skin and whatnot. And the book does a pretty good job of describing how horrific this toxic fog is. But to see it on screen, I was just like, some of those boils were pretty gross to look at and look super super painful. So yeah, I think that was definitely, with the small alteration you mentioned about who's carrying who at what point. And yeah, I mean, Katniss never carries Mags
Right.
at any point in this one, but I think it was pretty faithfully adapted, got all of the emotions and sentiments conveyed. The one slight thing is maybe it takes a little bit away from how capable and heroic and self-sacrificing Finnick is in that moment, because it's like he could have got away scot-free if it was just him left to his own devices to outrun the fog, but he goes out of his way to try to save as many people as he can, and that makes Mags' sacrifice that much more heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even if it was just him and Mags, that would have been another thing. But
oh yeah, they could have got away for sure.
Yeah, trying to save Peeta and trying to save Katniss, keep them alive too. They all lose Mags, who I think everybody had been growing connected to her throughout the training and everything too. So I think it looked like it was painful for everybody to lose someone of that caliber. And Haymitch, we know he had a connection with her too. So Katniss was thinking about that, I think, in the book, and so I think that added to it.
Yeah, I always cry at that scene because it's just so tragic to lose Mags that way, and for her to make that sacrifice. And that's another one of those kind of puzzle pieces that Katniss has to put together of like, everybody's acting, or at least Finnick and Mags and Joanna, like these people are acting weird, like this is not something's happening. And this is just another one of those moments where, like you said, J Scotty, if Finnick really wanted to, he could have got away, and if Finnick really wanted to, he could have taken Mags and gotten away, but he chose to stay behind and help Peeta and Katniss, and Mags chose to give up her life to save Peeta and Katniss. The only other difference that I can think of is the gas is also a neurotoxin, and so like their limbs start working, and that's part of why they're so slow, is because their legs literally stop working, and like Peeta, like his face is drooping as if he's had a stroke, and Katniss able to identify those signs and symptoms, and that's why she can't help Peeta, and that's why Finnick can't carry both, because he's also suffering from that. And so it's just that extra layer, not necessary for the movie by any means, but that extra layer of it in the book, like you're trying to run for your life and your body is failing you and there's nothing you can do about it. Like that kind of terror is really brought forth in the book and the way it's written.
And speaking of the sacrifice and the puzzle piece of putting together, like, why are they saving Katniss and Peeta? The next thing they need to face, I don't want to try trials again, but the next thing they have to face is the monkeying threats. Yeah, like each section of the clock is a different threat, and the monkeys is the next one, and they almost like immediately leave the fog into the monkeys, like especially in the movie, like immediately they're saved, and then they like face these. She notices the monkeys as she's have just escaped the fog. And the Morphling saves Peeta after the monkeys. And he comments on that. Like, she jumped in front of this monkey to save me.
Right. Again, another instance where I think it's very faithfully adapted. The Morphling was not a character that we spent a lot of time with in the book, nor in the movie, but it still is just a great showcasing for the sacrifice that even districts that we don't know that much about are willing to make for these icons of the rebellion. And I'm not going to bag on it too much, but I will say, like we talked about it a little bit with the first one, the mutations towards the end, we thought the CG was a little spotty. I will say I think the CG holds up better throughout this film, but bear in mind this was 2013. It was sandwiched between 2011's Rise of the Planet of the Apes and 2014's Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, where we had some of the best CG apes and monkeys that we've ever seen. I do think, this is the one instance of the film where I'm like, the CG did not quite age as well as the rest of the film, but it's a small, minor complaint. They are still terrifying. And it's a very palpable threat.
Yeah,
I think it's
no, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I think that the way people are acting is definitely starting to change her mind about, okay, there's something going on here, and I think that's really interesting. I think that the clock ticks is a really interesting way to threaten things, and so they have to solve that equation. That goes back to Plutar's hint to her that she has to try and remember at some point. And I think that this group is definitely starting to work a little more cohesively, but also still not trust each other. So I think that the monkeys I didn't stick in my brain very well. That one, it just kind of was another thing that, okay, we jump from fog to this. Now what's next in my brain?
Mm-hmm.
So kind of move forward and don't barely remember the monkeys, what they look like from even a month ago. So
Yeah, it's two heartbreaking scenes back to back. You lose Mags, and then this, the Morphling, who, like, we don't even know what her actual name is. Like, Katniss just calls her the Morphling, one of the Morphling twins. She comes out and saves Peeta, and then Peeta and Katniss have to hold, with Mags, she got to make the choice to sacrifice herself, but you didn't really get to say goodbye because it happened too fast, and you're still in danger and you have to keep running. But for this woman, like, they had to hold her in their arms while she's dying, and Katniss, gets put back in that moment with Rue, and, like, she, in the book, she questions, like, should I sing to her? Should I do something for her? Should I, like, I don't know what to do. I don't have a relationship with this person the way I did with Rue. Like, I don't know how to act right now. And Peeta takes over, and Peeta starts talking to her, and Peeta is, able to comfort her as she dies in his arms after saving his life. And it's just a really beautiful scene, and this actress who gets, all of about 30 seconds of screen time, like, has such an impactful role for these characters. Like, Peeta and Katniss both are never going to forget that she saved his life. There's a lot that happens, in the sequence of events in the rest of this book and the book after, but this is another one of those moments from the Hunger Games that is going to stick with them for the rest of their lives, and they're going to wake up one day and know that I'm here because she made that sacrifice. And so it's really well done in the book and in the movie. Like, look at the sunrise, look how beautiful it is, and she gets that last sight of something beautiful as she dies in this horrible, horrible way.
After that emotional moment, we are reconnected with Joanna, Beanie, and Wyrus, and their alliance grows, and they, spill out of the forest, covered in what Katniss describes as like red paint. Come to find out, it is the blood rain, and Joanna is kind of filling everybody in on what happens. And I got them for you, and she's like, What does that mean?" And it's another puzzle piece, like you mentioned. And Beatty had gotten a knife in the back, which he did not get in the film. And Wyrus is just going on and on about tick clock stuff.
I think he did take the knife to the back in the film. It just is not incapacitating him in the same way because Joanna has, like, the passing line of dialogue when they're discussing the copper wire. Like, it's like he made a beeline to the cornucopia for that, took a knife to the back for it. It's a passing line of dialogue. Yeah.
And speaking of getting the wire, I did want to mention that as we were talking about how Plutarch was laying clues and kind of helping behind the scenes. And, I would love to have known what that conversation was. Like, I will have wire for you like, was that there for him specifically? Because he did make a beeline for that. And so did he know it was going to be there, or did he see it? I would love to know more, behind the scenes kind of stuff.
I think in the book, when she's like on the plane and she's in and out of consciousness, I think it is mentioned that, or Haymitch is explaining to her what happened, and he does mention like certain districts, like
Okay,
4,
good.
3, a bunch of districts were in on this plan in varying degrees, and so I think it is explained later, albeit very briefly, that the wire was put there for
Perfect. Okay.
Beatty, so that they could have this rescue mission for the Mockingjay.
And I think
Yeah,
in the book they mentioned that he used wire like that he, like, he's the
He did
designer of
use
it, he
it
used it in his
in
Hunger
his
Games.
games. Yeah.
And he
So it was
invented
something they
it
wanted to
too.
make sure was there for him. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I
it
think
would
they
make
say he
sense
took
to
out 6 tributes at once by electrocuting them in a similar trap that he rigged there. But it's also revealed in the book, and the parachute gifts that we get are
Mhm.
not as highlighted in the movie. Outside of the spile that they get, is that's their
Mhm.
source of water. But they also reveal that the food rations that they get, like it's bread from 4 or 3, like that was code. It was like the district that it's coming from
Oh,
is like the number
yeah.
of days, and then the number of
Mhm.
pieces of bread is like how they were able to calculate the hours. So I do think I think Beatty, amongst others, had a lot more. We're working with a lot more information than some others.
definitely.
So the next kind of threat that we run into, and actually, forgive me, this is before Ryrus is killed, the birds, or is it after Ryrus is killed?
In the book, I believe it's after, but I
Okay.
don't recall the film if they reverse the order.
Well, so 2 things happen. Wyrus is killed because they're at the cornucopia, kind of talking about the map. They've discovered that it's a clock because of her singing the song, "The Mouse Runs at the Clock," and saying "tick-tock." Katniss puts this together. And then one of the other threats we get is the Jabberjays that mimic, I almost said Rue, mimic Prim. She hears Prim first. She runs into the forest. Finnick chases her, and Finnick then hears Annie. And then all of the birds are coming, and it's everybody's voices that they care about. And it's a whole hour that they have to listen to their loved ones being tortured.
And again, that's just another acting for not just Jennifer Lawrence, but also Sam Claflin, because in the book, again, she's able to say how much of a torment it is for her, and how she just basically has to cover her ears and wait for it to ride out. But you can't have that happen in the film. So the just visibly shaken, like pallor expression that they both have, even when it stops, you can just see the immediate impact that trauma has had on them. So I wanted to call them out for so effectively portraying what is only described in the book.
Yeah,
Did
absolutely.
they talk about in the film? I can't remember. Did they talk about how they thought they must be actually have been tortured somewhere? Is that like in order to get
Yeah.
those sounds, they would
It's
have to have our people, our families
Yeah.
included.
they spend a lot more time on in the book, but in the movie, as I recall, Finnick just has like a quick line, like where
Yeah.
they had to get those sounds from somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad that they did bring that in to the movie to remind them and the viewers, like, the Hunger Games is beyond the arena. Like Haymitch said
Mm,
earlier, like, you never get off this train. Just because you survived your Hunger Games doesn't mean that you have to stop pretending. And just because you're in the arena, in the Hunger Games, doesn't mean that there aren't still threats to your friends and family on the outside. Um, so yeah, that reminder from Finnick and him and Katniss having that conversation, like, she's relieved at first. She's like, "Oh, they're just Jabberjays. Like, it's not real. It's not real." And he's like, "Yeah, where do
mm,
you think they copied that sound from?" And then
They
she's
right.
like,
were, yeah.
"Oh shoot, like, you're right." And that's when you see, like you said, the incredible acting of her just holding her head and screaming. It's just so painful to not only hear the voices, but to imagine what had to happen in order to get those voices. And we do get, like you said in the book, a little bit of explanation after the fact that it's very, from Beatty. He explains how it's very easy and, in fact, common to alter voices. And that's probably what happened. And Peeta actually has the great moment where he's able to comfort Katniss and Finnick and say, when there's 8 of us left, they do family interviews back home. And
Right.
everybody knows that Katniss has a little sister. Everybody knows, that she has a mom and, her cousin Gail and, all these things, they have to do those interviews with those people. So, for sure that they're going to be okay for that reason. And so again, another explanation, another moment that like would have been nice to have in there, but if you gotta cut it, like it is what it is.
And that does bring to mind, like, it's an interesting kind of pendulum swing from not only the first book and film, but to this one, whether it was Katniss's inner monologue or if it was like checking in with Caesar Flickerman to get his kind of correspondence and punditry on the ongoings. There's so much less of that in this one, and it really does kind of create this sense of like paranoia and doubt about what is actually taking place outside the walls of this arena. Because to your point, Jordyn, the games always extend beyond the walls of the arena, but we have such less inclination to what that looks like this time around, which just increases the tension overall.
It's a great point. So we kind of wrap up the story here with the lightning tree plan. They within the game, their plan is to utilize that lightning tree with the wire and electrocute the remaining careers. But there's a secret plan of kind of breaking the arena with this wire. And you see Beatty try to, after all hell breaks loose with the cutting of the wire and Anabaria and is it Brutus that attack Joanna and Katniss with the wire. She cuts out her tracker. She runs back up because there's a cannon. She's fearful of Peeta. Then she sees Beatty throw the spear into the wall. Finnick comes running back and she realizes what he was trying to do and she shoots the arrow into the sky. And then we can talk about that before we move into kind of like the cliffhanger here at the end.
Yeah, I think the big difference between the book and the movie and this one is that line that Katniss recalls when she's got her bow drawn and she's deciding whether or not to take out Finnick, and she recalls the last thing that Haymitch said to her before she goes into the games, and it's remember who the real enemy is. And you can't. I guess you could, if you wanted to, have some narration and have her recite the line or something like that in her head, but instead they decided to give that line to Finnick, which I think makes a lot of sense. It works. And yeah, I guess another thing is I felt like I had a little bit of a clearer sense of what exactly was going down in the book as far as what she was doing with, tying the wire to the string and shooting her arrow and the impact. But in the movie, I felt like she waited till the last second in a different way. And it was like almost like the timing was like a little weird. Like she had to wait for the lightning to strike a little bit differently, which caused her to get blown back and everything like that. So maybe I'm just misremembering, but I thought, I was like, I'm a little bit more confused about what actually needed to go down, which is not usually the case when it's visually being represented for you.
Right.
Yeah, I think in the book she by the time she gets back to the tree, Beatty is unconscious and he has a similar wound in his arm to the wound that she has from Joanna.
Oh, good catch.
And nobody else is there. She sees a knife with wire wrapped around it and she puts together what she thinks Beatty was trying to do. And I believe she shoots the arrow. She finds a chink in the armor that they've been referring to. She shoots the arrow there. And then there's like a half second until the lightning strikes. And that's when the explosion happens and she gets knocked back. So I think there is a little bit more time for her to like think and process versus in the movie. It's very like, I got to make a move. So I'm going to kind of panic and do this and shoot the arrow instead of her like having the opportunity to think it through a little bit more. But yeah, I did like how Finnick got the line, you know, to remind her, like, remember who the enemy is, because she was ready to kill him. She was
Oh, yeah.
ready, because she has no idea about this bigger plot still, right? So she's still in the minds of just being in the Hunger Games, and where's Peeta? Where am I? How do I protect Peeta and get him home out of this? Everybody is a threat now. Joanna turned on me and, you know, sliced me open for some reason. She doesn't put together that it was to remove the tracker, because she's in a life now. She's panicking. She's in a life or death. She can't process it. So yeah, the movie and the book like go so fast at the end that it can be a little confusing to like keep track of what's happening and where everybody's at. But I think the movie does a good job of portraying that like panic that she's feeling, where she is fearing for her life and for Peeta's, and so she goes and does, you know, as is her prerogative and how she's been doing. She just goes and does the craziest thing she can think of and hopes for the best. And lucky enough, that was exactly what she was supposed to do, and so it all worked out for her this time.
And I think that the confusion part is kind of part of the point there. I think you're supposed to feel, as the audience, we're supposed to not know exactly what happened here. We're supposed to be with Katniss in this. Where am I? What am I? What's going on here? How do I move forward from this? What's happening next? So I think that's why it felt that way to me in the visual medium. I thought that worked well. But I think that it also, that questioning of where's Peeta, all that leads us into the next part too, where, you know, after they get the blackout and everything that happens after that, it gives the emotional resonance now to where she's at. So I'm gonna go into that.
Yeah, so speaking of the second part in Where's Peeta, she wakes up and hears talking, and she grabs the syringe, and she discovers Plutarch, Finnick, and Haymitch making plans, discussing things. She's confused. She tries to attack Haymitch, and they break the news to her that Peeta was captured along with Joanna. And they sedate her again because she's, you know, lashing out at Haymitch. So they sedate her. She wakes up again. Gale is with her this time. And she's like, where's Prim? They're safe. We're on our way to them, but we're not going to District 12. We're going to District 13. And the bombshell that there is no District 12. It has been blown to bits. And that's, you know, her reaction going from sorrow to anger is how we end the film.
And what a strong ending that was for this one. To, you know, there is no more District 12. Finding out that everybody she knew there that didn't make it out with Gale is gone now, and that she's right in the middle of this rebellion now. Pete is gone. Joanna's gone. They don't know where these people have been taken. And yeah, that was honestly a great way to end this stage in the story.
Yeah. I know we talked about her like kind of overacting a little bit earlier in the first half of the film, and the argument can be made that she's doing that here when she's screaming at Haymitch like, you're a liar, but it's again like Haymitch promised her that he would save Peeta and do everything to save Peeta, and he lied to her. And she, not only about that, but about this whole plot. And one of the lines in the book that really hits is she's like, I was just another pawn in somebody else's games. Like, at least in the Hunger Games, I knew I was a pawn, but now I'm being used by other people that I trusted. I trusted Haymitch, and being used against my will still somewhere else, and I didn't even know it. And that is part of that anger, I think. And I want to, when she wakes up and she grabs that syringe in the book, she explains like she thinks that she's on a capital plane and that she's being taken prisoner to the capital. So her plan is to find Peeta and kill Peeta, to protect him so that he doesn't have to go
Right.
through any sort of torture or pain or suffering at the hands of President Snow and the Capitol. And that's why she has that syringe. And that's all she's got in this moment. And then she finds out that, like, okay, great, I'm safe. I'm not with the Capitol. Haymitch is here. Finnick is here. Plutarch, ? He's here, but whatever. Okay. And then she is hit with that betrayal, and it's so devastating for her. And then, like you said, describing it, Sarah-Daye, like, she gets knocked out, and then the next thing she hears when she wakes up is, oh yeah, by the way, your home got blown to smithereens too. So Peeta's gone, your home is gone. By the way, District 13 exists. Like, she's going through everything right now. She's going through so much. She's 17 years old. So yeah, she's gonna, for, to use a popular phrase with the kids, she's gonna crash out. And she's very valid in crashing out, and she should have crashed out harder, in my opinion, because what do you mean? You've been lying to me this whole time, and everything is not what I thought it was. So yeah, it's a crazy ending full of lots of plot twists, but the setup for the next one is great, and I think J-Law acted the hell out of these scenes.
Agreed. You mentioned that line where she says, "You're a liar." And at first I was going to say I love that, but I hesitate to say that I love it because it's heartbreaking and it's hard to watch, but it's so compelling and captivating because those are the parts of the performance that I really appreciate, because again, we as readers know the constant back and forth, and they do as good a job they can in the film to be like, she wants to protect Peeta. She's made this arrangement with Haymitch, but Peeta's, clearly doing his own thing, and they get to have that nice moment on the beach where he shows what he has inside his medallion with the locket. It's like, hey, this is why I want you to let me die for you, because you have something to go back to. So yeah, you lose a little bit of that, but that's when all that raw emotion is just so well captivated and portrayed, because yeah, she's taking her voice and her emotion. It's so raw to the point where her voice is coarse and breaking. And yeah, I mean, tour de force performance in my opinion. But in the same breath, I do have to call out, I love Philip Seymour Hoffman, the late great Seymour Hoffman, and I would never say anything to disparage him. But there's that moment where he has to deliver the line, "This is the rebellion. You are the Mockingjay." And he just says it like so matter of fact, with no passion whatsoever. I'm like, really? We couldn't have done like one more take, my guy? Just like one more take. But maybe that's what they were going for.
It seemed that way, that way, but yeah, definitely could have.
Yeah, I'll have to rewatch it.
Yes, I promise you, it's just like, "This is the rebellion. You are the Mockingjay."
He's taking off his game maker hat, and he's just having a smoke over by the table. Look, we're at the rebellion. This is it.
I think that's fascinating, because he's been orchestrating this for so long behind the scenes that I think he also has kind of suffered from a level of dehumanization of the victors and the people in the games, because they're like she says in the book, like, they're all just pawns. Like, he's doing the right thing. He's one of the good guys, but he still is treating people like pawns on a chessboard and not like human beings with feelings and relationships and stuff like that. So for him, it is very matter of fact, like, this is the rebellion, and you are the Mockingjay, and you're a tool for propaganda to make all these other things happen in other places with other people. You're not Katniss Everdeen, who has a mother and a sister and is married to Peeta and loves him deeply, and has all these thoughts and feelings and opinions on what's right and what's wrong, and did you even want to be a part of this? So yeah, like, we know Philip Seymour Hoffman was a great actor, and he could have done something different, but I think that was an intentional choice for him to, because in a lot of ways, and we, spoilers for Mockingjay, like, we discover that the good guys in a lot of ways are just as bad as the bad guys.
Right.
And so
that's what I was going to say. This all kind of continues on through the next book, and that's kind of what the whole point is everything is connected to that, pawns and chess and how it's played.
Mm-hmm.
And now that you're talking about it, he talks that way to Snow too. Like, he is just matter of fact. Like, he was telling things to Snow in that very monotone way too. But Jordyn, you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And that whole thing is like, that's such a foreshadow to Katniss's big problem with District 13 is that they're still just playing a game. You know, that's basically the finale of Mockingjay is why she has a problem with Coin. And Plutarch is, you know, Coin's right-hand man.
Okay. All right, I retract everything I said. It was a very appropriate line read.
I had to retract everything I said about Finnick. So, you know, we just say stuff and then, you know, we get corrected.
That's the point of the conversation.
Yeah.
We get those different perspectives. Yeah.
Exactly.
We get new facts. We change our minds. That's what good people are supposed to do.
That's right.
All right. So any final thoughts on Catching Fire before we wrap up?
No, it was just a real pleasure to revisit both the book and the movie, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to do it. And it just, like I said, increases my excitement to go back and watch both Mockingjays as well as read the book, and just really kind of get me chugging along when it comes to catching up on all things Hunger Games. Because yeah, I've got the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I love the movie so much. I can only imagine I'm going to love the book. And then Sunrise on the Reaping seems like it's going to be integral and really substantial. So I think we're in a good place, whatever level of fandom you have for the Hunger Games.
Yeah.
For me, Mockingjay is where I felt like the adaptation part kind of fell a little bit flat, but I'm excited to see how, going back to it now, if I feel differently or if it's going to change anything about that, or listening to you guys talk about it too. But I felt like some of the changes were bigger. So, but we'll see.
Yeah, and it is important to note that was split into two, so we'll have a lot to talk about.
Long episodes.
All right, so do we want to talk about our bookmark moments and go around and say what our favorite part of this adaptation was? What did we think the adaptation did best? We can start with you, J Scotty. Sorry to put you on the spot.
No problem at all. I think I've already kind of forecasted my thoughts as far as this goes, but I think the movie just like hits a great stride once we get into the Capitol, and particularly like the arena is just so well adapted that this may be controversial to say, but I appreciate the ongoings in the arena in the book. But again, with the book being kind of a slow burn, I think the parts that I really kind of liked more was the time in District 11, District 12, and getting more context for the world of Pan Am. Where in the movie, it's really like it's the stuff towards the back half that I really glom onto.
Yeah, it was a good set design.
Mm-hmm. I think that for me, I found a lot of the District 12 personal moments in the book to be my bookmark moments. I think I messaged you guys about the memories book, or the knowledge book of knowledge, and thought how cool that is, and learning more about that district overall and her relationship with the place and the fence, and all the stuff when she goes to the lake. A lot of the time she spends in 12 was my favorite, I think, and getting to dig in deeper on those relationships and that world building there.
My favorites are the moments between Katniss and Peeta, both in the book and in the movie, where just speaking on their relationship, like they're the only one who truly knows what the other one went through in their games. And the fact that each of them are the only people who can ever comfort the other when they're having their nightmares. And it said, at least 2 or 3 times just in this book that, when they do sleep in the same bed, they don't have the nightmares because they have each other. And so for me as a big romance person, like it's very chaste. It's very, they're still kids. They're not, having sex or anything like that. But that is such a profound level of intimacy where finding another human being that is safe and where you can escape, the horrors of your life when you're with that person. It was really well described in the book and really well portrayed by Jennifer Lawrence and Josh Hutcherson in the movie. So I always love those tender moments between the two of them.
Speaking of Jen and Josh, it's kind of a cop out, but the acting in this film is my bookmark moment. I think all of the acting is so good. I love Sam Claflin as Finnick and Jenna as Joanna. And then even Elizabeth Banks as Effie. I think really she does such a good job of making Effie a much more well-rounded character in the movies than she is in the books, particularly the next one where she gets a lot more character development in the movie than she does the book. But there's just so many moments, cute little moments that Elizabeth does in the film that just make you fall in love with Effie. But yeah, everybody on the cast did such a great job bringing the story to life. So I really wanted to shout out their acting.
Agreed.
Love that.
Yeah, and on that note, J Scotty, thank you so much for joining us on the coverage of Catching Fire. Will you please let our listeners know where they can find you on other podcasting adventures?
Yeah, if you check out the Stranded Panda Podcast Network, I'm a pretty frequent contributor to most of the shows on there, but I'm going to give a special shout out to Multiverse News, where we talk about the latest and greatest in movie, TV, and sometimes video game news. So if you're a fan of any of those things, I encourage you to check out Multiverse News wherever you get your podcast. And thanks for having me.
And I will say that Multiverse News is like one of my favorite podcasts,
oh, thank
other
you,
than
thank
BookWatch, of course.
Of course,
but
of
yeah,
course.
if you are a nerd, please go check out Multiverse News. It's a great way to keep up to date on all that stuff.
Thank you. We work hard, and it's a labor of love, but we're very proud of it. So thank you.
All right, we'll see you next week, listeners. Thanks for joining us.
May the odds be ever in your favor.
That's a wrap for today's episode of BookWatch. I hope you enjoyed this journey into the world of page-to-screen adaptations. If you loved today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, review wherever you listen to podcasts, and share it with your fellow book and movie lovers. If you'd prefer to watch along, you can check the show out on YouTube. You can follow the show on Instagram at BookWatch Podcast, and you can follow me, Sarah-Daye, on Instagram at captain.mcdee. That's MCDEE. You can also join the conversation in the BookWatch Lounge on Facebook at www.facebook.com/groups/BookWatchLounge. If you would like to support the podcast, you can join the Patreon at www.patreon.com/BookWatchPodcast. Tiers start at only $4 a month, and I'd love to have you over there. If you have a favorite adaptation you'd like to cover with me, I'd love for you to apply to be on the show with the contact form on our website at www.bookwatchpodcast.com. Until next time, keep reading, keep watching, and I'll see you next week.